Face charges in separate knife attacks at an Ohio prison that left a guard severely wounded. A grand jury indicted Casey Pidge and Greg Reinke in the February attack at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility. That's in Lucasville. Pidge is a three-time convicted killer from Chillicothe who murdered his ex-girlfriend's mother, beat his cellmate to death with a cinder block, and strangled another inmate on a prison bus. The injured guard had 32 stab wounds and a long list of internal injuries. He spent weeks in the hospital and still has not been able to return to work.
This is part 4 to my 30-part series on Ohio ODRC correctional facilities. In this one, I'm going to be talking about Southern Ohio Correctional Facility, also known as Lucasville. It is in Scioto County, Lucasville, Ohio. Level 4, maximum security prison. Built in 1972, made to house 1,330 inmates. At the time of the 1993 riot I'm going to talk about, they had almost double that capacity, which is one of the two main reasons that the riot broke out. It was actually 3, and we'll get into that, but the reasons were the healthcare system. Inmates were mad. They were trying to force the TB, tuberculosis shot on inmates, and some of the Muslims got mad about that because of their strict diet of what they put in their body. And the third reason was the overcrowding. During this carnage, it was 9 inmates and 1 CO that got deleted, 4 gangs and organizations, Gangster Disciples, the Muslims, the Aryan Brotherhood, and the Death Squad is what I was reading. That last one, I actually seen it on a video of a clip from 1993, a news clip. If you Google it, it just says them first main 3. But since I did so much research, I found that last part because it said they were the first ones to actually unalive anybody. He said we had members of the Death Squad and they went around searching and seeking out the known snitches, and they immediately just whacked them, and that right there boosted everything else into like a more serious situation where people was like, well shit, we're in the shit now. I wasn't able to get their names, but it said there was 5 inmates involved in this that they considered like group leaders, ringleaders, who were actually given the death sentence after this. That takes me into the next part. So this is where they house Ohio's death row inmates. And as of April 2025, there was 116 inmates on the death, waiting to be put to death. It was saying that back then, during that time period, for Ohio prisons, it was the first time that any of the staff in ODRC had ever seen different races come together to help each other. And that's a lot more common now in Ohio's prisons, because you got white gangs allowing black dudes, black gangs allowing white dudes. Examples, you got, growth and development, GDs does that. You got C-Dub, Cincinnati White Boys changed it to Cincinnati Wild Boys because of that. You got the KFs, Convicted Family, they do that. You know what I mean? A lot of different. The only ones I ain't really seen is the Bloods. I ain't gonna say that there ain't no solid, accurate white Bloods, because I'm sure there is, and I don't, I've never been within their structure to know that, because I have seen a lot of them. I'm just simply saying that's one of the most least ones that you see very much of, because the Crips do it for sure. Like there's a big portion of white dudes that they'll let be Crips, GDs, all of what I just said. But with them mostly black gangs, African American organizations, they pick and choose who they do and don't want to be a part of. You gotta have something to bring to the table. You gotta at least be able to either fight or have a really good knowledge, memory of what's going on, all of that. Like for me, I was a lit coordinator. Like they had me making people become familiar with what they needed to. I had everything familiarized in my mind. Lots and lots of pieces of lit. I'm not saying that's the only reason that I was. I'm just saying it was a lot of the guys that needed brushed up on their stuff, and they would be like, they'd tell them, go see Pac. And then I'd have walk with them, and we'd have a couple days for them to be able to become familiar with it. And I'm not saying they used me, but what I am saying is I made that part a lot easier for all the guys because they knew I had a very good memory. If I remember something one time, it sticks with me, so I was able to spit everything that they asked me on a dime. Hey, this aerial view shows how crazy it, it's mostly looks like it's all indoors from what I've been able to tell. I'm guessing that's a yard and a baseball field back here. Before I get into these clips, I want to talk about this person right here. His name is James Harris, 38-year-old man from Toledo. His mother passed away, and he ate 25 AA batteries. Didn't get medical help for 4 months, and he has an open lawsuit with him. This is as of June of 2024. Before I get into these clips, I wanted to explain to y'all, most people who go to Luke, it's for a staff assault, usually. If you assault staff, this is where you go, and it's a long-time rumor that they're waiting there for you and that they're going to give you a little taste of what you did before you get sent to your new cell. And there's single-man cells there. Now I hear they have to give you a TV when you get there because of mental health reasons. Same for OSP in Youngstown. Maybe somebody in the comments can let me know if that's true, that they give you a loaner TV, a little, 15-inch flat screen, clear to them. But I know back in the day they didn't do that. And just like I said about right here, I had a CO telling me that back in the day at Lebanon, if there was a problem, you would fight. And there was no, I'm not going to say who it was. You know who you are if you're hearing this. But they was telling me in the 90s and 2000s, before the cameras was up, you had to fight to earn respect with the inmates. And you had a walkie, and that was it. No man down, transponder showing where you was, no cameras. It's all he say, she say. Definitely no body cam. Hey, and I got a story time separate than this about 2 different times I saw COs fight inmates at Leb, and it's a good one. I'm gonna have to do that another time because I need to have time for these clips right here. I almost went here myself. I thought I was already in the hole waiting to ride out to level 3 Lebanon for disciplinary, and I was a porter back there, and I was gonna wait about another month. And I was passing shit to all the inmates. So the CO, the one CO, we didn't get along. So he fired me. When the next shift came in, I tricked them, and they didn't know. So they let me back out. When he found that out, he lost his shit. He got so mad, he put something on my door that said, "Don't let me out for being a porter." Well, he used to knock on my door when I was taking a nap and wake me up purposely, sleeping, napping, whatever. I felt like he was doing shit to my food. I don't know, but so in the midst of all that, one day I just crashed out on him. Like, he came to the door. I already knew I was leveled up, so it didn't matter. He came to the door to give me my tray. I sat down, I squatted down and mumbled some shit, and then I threw, because he couldn't hear me, I'm like, "Hey, come here." And his dumbass actually did. He squatted down and looked at me through the hatch, and I just hit him with some BO5 shampoo. They just wrote me a conduct report, and after that, they put this thing on my door that would bring my trays to me, and it was like they didn't trust me. They would shut it on the hatch, and it would just carry it to me. It's like a portable thing. And then on top of that, I had to be walked to the shower every day with the white shirt. I had a thing on my door that said I had to be escorted to the shower, though.
Shamik Pugh was serving 5 years for burglary. Halfway through his sentence, he and 3 others were brutally stabbed inside Ohio's Lucasville prison.
I went out to recreation, ankle shackles and handcuffed to a table that you supposed to feel safe going out there to them tables. Remind you, we playing spades.
As the men played cards, another prisoner at the table behind them got up and attacked the men. Shackled, they were unable to run.
I was like, wow, this can't be happening. I got up and the other inmates got up, but we trying to get out our cuffs. We trying to get out.
The stabbing, captured in security video obtained exclusively by the Associated Press, raises questions about how such an attack could have happened inside one of Ohio's most secure prisons. The alleged attacker, Greg Rinke, was involved in a second attack months later, nearly killing a prison guard.
Our heart goes out to the victims in this case.
Newly elected prosecutor Shane Tiemann charged Rinke in both attacks after authorities initially declined to prosecute him. They argued Rinke was already serving life.
Yes, Mr. Rinke's in prison for life, but these inmates, these gentlemen that were there, regardless of whatever reason they were in prison, they have a right to be protected.
Pugh believes guards set the group up that day, something prison authorities, the guards union, and Tiemann strongly deny.
I have no basis to believe this was a setup.
They didn't want me to come home, and they didn't want me to shine light onto that institution.
This prison riot in Ohio history is jumping off. It would turn into an 11-day siege, like a castle in medieval times waiting out the enemy. 10 would be dead and the southern Ohio area would be shocked. Let's take a look at the Lucasville prison riot. Lucasville, Ohio is a small town and is labeled as a census-designated place. Located in Scioto County in southern Ohio, 1,655 people live in Lucasville, Ohio. The county seat, Portsmouth, is about 10 miles to the south, on the banks of the Ohio River. The area is named after Robert Lucas, a hero from the War of 1812. Southern Ohio Correctional Facility is the setting of this unfortunate incident. As with most prison riots, there is always a build-up to the incident, often with multiple factors involved. Tensions slowly began to rise in 1990 after a teacher at the prison was murdered. She was followed into the restroom by an inmate and her throat was slashed. The murderer, Eddie Vaughn, was her own aide in the classroom. The husband of the victim sued the state of Ohio for wrongful death and won because appropriate security measures were not in place to protect staff. This put pressure on the Ohio DRC administration to create a more secure, and in the offender's eyes, a more restrictive environment. The early 1990s was a time of high crime in the country. This led to prison overcrowding all over the nation. In 2019, the prison was operating at a population of 1,292. The population at the prison at the time of the riot was over 2,000. This led to inmates being double bunked. The riot would begin as the offenders were coming off the prison yard. A fight would break out in cell block L. A CO's keys were taken from him and all the cells were opened on the block. The 5 correctional officers on the unit were subdued and taken hostage. The inmates chanted, "We have the keys," in a loud and emotional manner. Almost immediately, 5 inmates that were identified as snitches were dispatched. 2 of them were stabbed, one over 20 times. Another inmate was strangled with an extension cord. Following the killing of the 5, their bodies were placed in the prison yard. While the offenders didn't have firearms, they did take the officers' batons after taking over the unit. Within the first few hours, 12 guards were under the control of over 400 inmates, most of which had been beaten badly by the rioters. That same evening, 3 officers were released by offenders due to their extensive injuries. A spokeswoman for the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction said of the dead inmates, "They suffered extensive injuries. I think it's probably pretty obvious who killed them. Our staff wouldn't do that." By her answer, there appears to be questions at that time surrounding whether staff had killed the inmates. After the first day, the only other information regarding the riot provided by authorities was a group of inmates started a fight and a group of correctional officers responded. At that time, L Block was housing 761 inmates, but not all had been involved. Typically, the prison was staffed by 130 correctional officers, but only 80 were on shift. After day 1, the prison began to buzz with more law enforcement and prison teams on standby outside the prison. Day 2 would begin, and officials were still trying to get a grasp on the situation. The yards were cleared by staff and placed in K Block. Tuesday, April 13th. The next morning, all water and electricity was turned off. The riot could only last so long without these necessities. Another slain inmate was placed in the yard. It appears on the second day there wasn't much progress made by prison staff on what to do. This wasn't ending anytime soon. Wednesday, April 14th. A police helicopter patrolling the area crashes with 3 people suffering injuries. A sheet is hung outside the windows of L Block, threatening to kill a hostage if demands aren't met. Various accounts say that demands were relayed via telephone, which included more programming and additional visitation privileges. At this time, inmates did not feel prison authorities were taking them seriously. Thursday, April 15th. Things would start to spiral out of control. Robert R. Vallandigham, a correctional officer, was killed, and his body was placed in the prison yard. It appears that the leaders of the riot wanted to let everyone know that they were serious. One negotiator for the state said, "We are getting positive feedback. There is a feeling of mutual respect." Various reports were also emerging that the inmates wanted the warden and most of the supervisors fired. Another officer was released by inmates on this day. Over the next few days, negotiations would drag on with limited success. Sunday, April 18th. Cleveland lawyer Nikki Schwartz, a prison advocate, was brought to aid the process. A 21-point agreement was signed by the warden, but this would not be the end. Throughout this time, food and water deliveries were being made to inmates. Again, a few days would pass with inmates weighing their options and negotiations continuing. Wednesday, April 21st. This would be the day it would end. After a meeting with Schwartz, an agreement was finally reached. At 3:56 p.m., inmates would begin to surrender, but there still would be more bloodshed. 2 more inmates would be killed. At 10:40 p.m., the 5 remaining correctional officers were freed, and by 11:20 p.m., the last inmate would surrender.